All right, so today we're going to learn how to turn this into this. We'll be making a 4-inch planter with a little saucer that goes with it. All right, so to begin with, we're going to take about 2/3 of our clay and set that aside. We're going to take the third, the smaller piece, and we're going to flatten that out by hand. And we're going to be making the saucer, which this is the template for the saucer. Just kind of flatten that out, and then you're going to take the thickness strips and put them on both sides, and then you're going to roll out the clay. All right, once it's rolled out as thick as your thickness strips, you can move those out of the way, and then you're going to take a rib. This is a metal rib. Make sure it's cleaned off, and then you're going to just rib the surface. Couple different directions. All right, looks good. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to set my template on top of here, and I'm going to trace around that with a needle tool. So this is just a tool that's got a needle point on one end. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take your sponge, just kind of hold this in your hand gently, get your sponge, squeeze out most of the water, and then go around the edge all the way around like that. You're also going to round the edge with a tool that has a little groove cut in the end like this. And you're just going to take that and you're going to round the edge, going all the way around like that. Okay, then I usually just take my fingers and I'll just smooth the edge out by hand. Once you get that to where you're happy with it, you're going to set this on a wear board off to the side. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to just cut a little piece off to make the base. Okay, so that's the right thickness. What I want to do is rivet now. And I'm going to put a texture into the piece. So I'm going to use this curly pattern texture. Just leave your thickness strips in place. And you're going to start just off of the rubber piece a little bit and roll all the way down to the bottom. And then move this up to the top. And then start rolling just below the piece again, all the way to the other end like that. Now you have a little line where the two came together, and it really isn't anything significant. You won't notice it on your piece when you're done. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and lay my paper on here. And once again, using my needle tool, I'm going to cut a straight edge using the ruler to make sure it stays nice and straight. So this one here, before I set it aside, I'm going to do a bevel cut on the flat edge where you can see the texture. And I have a bevel cutter. Basically with this, you're going to take it at one end, line up the edge, and just slide it straight down the piece. It gives you a bevel cut right there at the edge. And then we'll set that aside for a few minutes while we work on the bottom, and then we'll come back to that shortly afterwards. So put your thickness strips back in place. I didn't roll this out all the way. So go ahead and rib this piece as well. And then cut that out. All right, I'm going to go ahead and smooth out the edges to this one right now. I'm not going to round them, just going to smooth them out with a sponge, get rid of the sharp corners, and set that aside. All right, so now we're ready to go ahead and begin putting the pieces together. So in order to put this together and have it stay together, we want to score, and that's where you're going to take a tool and you're going to scratch up the surface of it. So this piece is going to wrap around to here, and so we're going to score the top along this bevel, and then we're going to follow this curve shape over here. We're going to cover this up. So only scratch where you're going to cover it up. And then flip it over to the back side, and we're going to be attaching it from here to there, so scratch this up or score that. And then we're going to add some slip. So slip is gooey clay that's been mixed with water. My slip is a little bit thinner right now than it should be, but it'll still work. I'm going to add this slip into this. And then what I need to do now, where I'm going to attach it, I'm going to score along here. So I'm going to use a banding wheel to work on. All right, so set your banding wheel down, put your base on it, and then take your scoring tool and score all the way around the edge, scratching into the surface. It will really help keep your pieces together. I'm going to add some slip to that right now. And then this will be the bottom of my piece, so I'm going to set it up like this. And I'm going to score all along the bottom edge too. So when you score both pieces, it almost makes like little fingers, and as you force it together, those kind of help get together and hold everything together tight so it doesn't come apart later on. I'm going to score both pieces since my slip is pretty thin. I'm sorry, I'm going to add slip to both pieces, I mean. All right, so what I want to do now is I want to go ahead and turn this around so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this around. I can see where my scoring ends there. I'm going to overlap and gently force these pieces together, supporting from both sides evenly. And then once I think I have it together good, I'm going to take a wooden tool that's just got a soft edge to it, and I'm going to seal that seam up on the inside. So if you can see that or not, I'm not sure, but there's a seam in there, and scoring it, we scored it, we added the slip, and now we're going to continue welding the pieces together to help seal them up nice and strong on the inside. Okay. Now the next thing is I want to round this out as best as possible. And so I do have a container that is slightly smaller than this shape. And I'm going to set that very carefully on the inside of it to help me round it out. Get a nice circular shape. Don't force it down and get it stuck. Just enough to help round it out. Now I'm going to take it, I'm going to flip it back over onto this. I find it's better to do this than to try to set the bottom on top of it. So I'm going to just very carefully take it, flip it over. I'm going to lose a little bit of the shape, but the bottom is round. I'm going to just work it into place to make sure I got a good seal on there. I do leave the overlap piece overhanging a little bit, but if it just depends on whether it fits and how it works out. But just go around from the inside and out. Just make sure you got a nice even edge. And as I'm doing this, I'm kind of smoothing the outside with my pinky or one of my fingers, and I'm kind of pushing down gently and outward if I need to on the inside. Okay, so I've got a pretty good fit all the way around. I'm going to take the piece now and just gently tap it so the paper towel is on there so it doesn't stick, and I'm going to just tap it. So this is further welding the two pieces together, giving me a nice seal between them. Okay, so I'm just going to go around one more time, make sure it's sealed good on the bottom. And then I'm going to take this container back in the top and re-round out the top. Good, all right. Now a step that I skipped that I want to do now before I set it aside is I want to get the sponge a little bit damp and then go over the top. We'll need to re-round it at the end again. And then get that rib with the groove in it. I also have credit cards that have a hole punch in it that can be used. Not credit cards, but gift cards. All right, and then just once again with my fingers, I'm gonna just go back over that and make sure it's nice and smooth. The sponge a lot of times takes away some of the slip and the clay, and it leaves just more of the sand, so my fingers will usually leave it just a little bit smoother at the end. So I'm gonna take this again, re-round it out, set that aside. Now I'm gonna put my buttons on here, so make sure the edge of this is nice. And then so for your buttons, you're gonna just take a little piece of the extra clay, and depending on whether you want one button or two, just take your clay and roll it into a ball. I like to just actually tap them on the table to give me a flat edge, and then the flat edge I'm gonna score. And I'm gonna turn this here so you can see I'm gonna score both spots where I'm gonna attach them, a little bit of slip on there. And just stick them into place temporarily. Now from the inside I'm going to support the piece, and then I have a little flower stamp here. I'm going to take support from the inside and I'm going to push the stamp into the button, and it'll make a flower design in both pieces. And then one last time I'm going to just double check my shape. Looks good. All right, so I'm going to set this aside. Set your saucer piece on top of it. Get your paper towel that's cut to be the same size, set that on top, and then you're going to get this container right here, and you're going to center it the best you can by eye. And then you're going to push it down, and lift up. Now this is still real soft, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to very carefully move it to a wear board. Make sure it's flat. Now one other thing you can do if you'd like is you could take this saucer and you could make it a little bit more like a flower type of shape, and the way you would do that is just get your fingers wet or damp, and then you're going to put two on the outside, one on the inside, and push outward. Go to the opposite side, do the same thing. Petal shapes. And then that's a little bit more like a flower shape if you'd like for your saucer. Voila.